You're listening to Countercurrent, the podcast about business, family, and freedom. Hosted by Aaron Smith and Jack Hudson.
Hi, we are back for episode number 11.
11, you got it right this time.
Yes,
That's
right?
great.
I know, I always have to be corrected. And we are stoked to almost be in May. Well,
Yes.
Actually, when this rolls out, it will be May.
Yeah. This is May in Indiana.
Yeah. To quote Justin Timberlake, it's going to be May.
It's going to be, there you go. There you go. We've been helping all of our clients get ready for May.
Yes.
Leverage the Indianapolis excitement.
I know there's a ton of excitement going on.
Yeah.
Here in Noblesville, there's Peony Festival. They're a great organization that we work with. There's the race is coming.
Also something called the 500.
Yep. The Peony Festival is very important, equal to the race.
Yeah, they actually do a blackout during the Peony Festival. That's why it's not aired all day.
It is blacked out. It's just the cell phone service is blacked out because there are so many people that are in downtown Noblesville.
That's right.
But it's fantastic. Something everybody should put on their list.
Mm-hmm.
On our end, we have two country clubs that are clients of ours, and I mean, May is a crazy time.
I bet.
Because people are just itching to get outside.
I had a friend who was looking at plane tickets over Memorial Day weekend, not to come to the race, just to come visit, and $900.
Yep.
I was like, I've never seen a more expensive ticket to Indianapolis. So,
yeah, don't even look at hotels. I'm sure that's a nightmare.
No. But today's hot take, this is pulled from Reddit, so I'm not going to take credit for it. Most people don't quit. No, most people don't fail. They quit.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's super true. We've talked about it, sort of alluded to it in the past, but a lot of the times when things get hard, you have to push through, and some people don't, and that's fine. But I don't think you can count it a failure until you've exhausted all efforts.
Yeah, and that's where I've seen a lot of business owners that, to your point, they get in a hard spot, or they burn out and they can't figure out how to get out of a cycle, and it's a lot easier to have somebody else cut your check for you.
Mm-hmm. It is. Well, and that's what we were looking at, all these hot takes online, and somebody said, if you're starting a new business, to leave your 9 to 5, then prepare for your 9 to 5 plus your 5 to 9 plus your 9 to 9, which is so true. And yes, you can have more flexibility, but it's also like I step out of family dinner at 8 p.m. on a Saturday because a client calls and it's not somebody I'm going to miss. Or I'm in Oklahoma over the weekend and get a random call on a Saturday morning and a Sunday evening, and I'm taking those calls. So it's just different.
And I know that I can't remember if it was on here that we lamented about it, or our wives lamented about it. The fact that we'll be driving somewhere and I'm like, hey, Bronwyn, can you email me this in the subject line? That's just like a brain blast that I got. And it's because my brain never turns off. In the middle of the night, when we're driving, whatever, I just can't turn it off.
It was just 10:30 last night and I was almost asleep and I was like, shoot, I need to email myself because I'm going to forget about this. Because I already forgot about it yesterday. So those things happen nonstop.
I do think that that does separate out entrepreneurs from the other normal people in the world. Yeah. Right. The fact that it's a gene you either have or you don't, really, where you're willing to jump in and be uncomfortable and take risks.
Right.
And it's to fail. That's really hard.
Right.
It's I think that's if I would say my number one fear is public failure. And so I know I've had to work alongside to figure out how to move through it, because the failure is just a part of entrepreneurship. Yeah.
And I was just talking to my brother about this, but we're both very bad at reflecting when we've had wins too. And I think a big part of if you do fail, a big reason to quit is to think that you weren't succeeding in the first place. Right. And a lot of that comes from not taking the time to go and acknowledge your wins.
Yes.
Because if you do acknowledge your wins, you're like, oh, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to everything else we've done. And I think a lot of people struggle at that. They're just, At least I know I am. It's just like, okay, great, on to the next thing. Because once you reach certain milestones, you get a little bit numb to like different levels of success become more relative. It's like, well, I did that last week too.
Yep.
So, no, I think that's super important, and it helps deter the quitting.
Yeah.
Is when you say, no, I've done 10 great things and we had one big mess up. The next 10 will be great too. And it's okay to fail.
Well, and I love that. I can't remember the full quote, but that Teddy Roosevelt, it's like in the arena quote, I think is so good, where, you know, he talks about like the one who actually is marred by the dust and continues to get up is the one that is the victor. Yeah. And I think it's so true. Like it is goofy. It's hard to do hard things, but there are so many people that are quick to hang up the hat way too early. Oh, way too early.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that is like school kind of teaches you that too. Yeah. It's like, let's be honest.
The regular Jack Hudson bit, school sucks.
Yeah. I don't think school sucks, but there are parts of it that just don't, like, they're not practical, right? Yeah. Like if you fail a test, you can fail the class. There's no redemption, right? Yeah. And it teaches you very binary, good, bad. And I don't think that's how business always operates.
Correct.
It's like you can mess up and then hopefully you have somebody to coach you along and get you out of it. Which now looking back, I used to think test corrections were kind of silly and all that stuff. And now I'm like, no, that makes sense, because that's a way better representation of life. It's like, oh, now you're going to get coached on how to do it better next time. Because that's what your boss is going to do with you. Or that's what your mentors are going to do for you. You're not just going to mess up once and not have a chance to redo your work. I mean, you almost always have that time period.
Well, and I think honestly, that's probably one of the most isolating parts about being a small business owner or entrepreneur is that it's tempting to say that you don't have anybody that you're accountable to.
Right.
Or if it's, you know, not necessarily like a business like ours, but if you run like a retail shop, your accountability structure is super dispersed because you have a million customers. Not just a few, but I think accountability is so healthy for everyone, no matter if you're an employee, if you're, you know, a corporate CEO, if you run your own small business. I view myself as being accountable to my clients.
Right.
So it is somewhat dispersed for me, as opposed to someone else. But I think that I am only able to exist if my clients are happy with the work that we do. And so I wake up every day trying to figure out, like, how can I show up better? How can I continue to, you know, go out and get new clients, more clients, work with the clients that I want to, fire the clients that I don't want to work with. Yeah. But it only works if you have the accountability to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I just, I was thinking about that because we've talked about these things in routine and everything. So I've started to make sure any of my sort of consistent recurring clients, we do have that weekly call set up. That way, it's holding us accountable and them accountable on, hey, we still need these items, or what do you need from us? What are you looking for? And it's been super, super helpful accountability thing. But now most of my Mondays are spent just like on the phone and answering emails, which is fine. But it does take out some of the work time. But I think everybody is better informed and more well-equipped to go into the week, which is totally worth it. Now, I wish I had people that we could help do the work on our team, but but we'll get there.
It is super important though, and that's where like it actually came up. I'm a fellow with the Tobias program through Indiana University this year, and it came up in our last meeting this month where there was a pretty high up CEO of an organization that's accountable to a board, and she was asking how she can show her work better to that board. And it was interesting. Like I was able to throw out there like the Monday emails that we send out, and she has about 50 people on her team. But she thought that was a great idea, right? Like, so I know I've said it here before, but every Monday we send out an email to all our clients with the work that we did last week, what's on our plate for this week, and then the running list of the to-dos that they've said they would like us to tackle at some point. So it shows what we've done, what we're doing. It holds us accountable. But then it also gives them the ability to say, actually, this is more important than that. So I need you to take this off the list. And a part of this last meeting, we had a 360 on ourselves, and I had all of my clients rate me, which is super terrifying. I hate that accountability structure, but I know it's good for me.
Yeah.
And all of them said that was so helpful that we implemented
That's
this
great.
year.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's hard sometimes to put yourself out there, because I think everybody knows their weak points, but having it out in the open, I think only helps you grow as a leader too.
Yeah, totally. Well, and it's just hard to make time for some of those things when you have to get the work done too. And part of that is like building up the team and the infrastructure to do it, and figuring out, okay, how can I make this not take 3 hours to send out emails in the morning? I think those are the pain points that stop a lot of people from communicating well. Is like, I don't have time to communicate. I have to get the work done. If you communicate, you buy yourself more time. Like for the most part. And this is a huge thing in the video world, and I get videos about it all the time. Like the young freelancer will say, well, I can get it to you in 2 days. And then the more experienced guy will say, stop what you're doing. Tell them 3 weeks.
Yep.
If you get it to them in 1, they'll be thrilled. If you don't have it done in 2 days, you have time.
Yep.
And I think by properly communicating, because it also gives you the leverage to say, I can rush this for you, but we're going to have to do that at a premium because we have to move some work around.
Yep.
And if they really need that, they'll pay for it. We've done that before. Yeah, we can speed that up, but we're going to work from 9 p.m. till midnight on this job for you. And if you have to do that, you have to do that.
I think it like bleeds perfectly into what we're talking about today with burnout. I think that's also such a tempting factor of running your own business, is that you think that you can do it all on your own. And I think that is part of the gene to being an entrepreneur. If you didn't think that you could do it all on your own, you probably would just stick with your corporate 9 to 5. Because I think that there is a little bit of like an audacity that comes with starting your own business, where you're like, yeah, I can do that, and I can do it better than anybody else. Right. But I think that what I've learned, and this is, again, is in a piece of vulnerability, is really hard for me. I think that I do things really well. And so it's really hard for me to delegate them out. But I know, and I've seen firsthand, that I cannot grow doing it on my own. And honestly, the metrics always have shown that when I bring somebody else on, the profit goes up, revenue goes up, my productivity goes up, because I'm able to think better than when I'm bogged down in all the details. But it's hard. Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to trust other people with your work. And I think, like you said, you go into it thinking, oh, we can do all this, right?
Yep.
And I think you have to have that scarcity mentality at some point. Emily and I were just talking about this. We were on a big shoot that normally they would take 12 people to last week. It was just the 2 of us. And we were talking about it yesterday. We're like, gosh, how much easier would one person make it? I said, but the thing is, if you had that one person, then we're going to say again, how much easier would it be if we had one more person? And eventually we wind up with 6 people there.
Yep.
If you keep doing that, because yes, it makes it easier. But also part of our selling point is that you can get the 2 of us and get the same product. We just have to really bust our butts all day, which is totally fine. But it's like, I think that's part of the small business challenge, is you don't just have money to throw around, but when do you hit that point that like, okay, we're at a ceiling and we need to bring somebody else on, or we need to just hone in and only do these few things. Emily and I are going to cut a service after we finish a current project because it's not a good use of our time anymore. So like, I think those things are really, really hard. And if you keep doing all of it and you try to do all of it on your own, burnout is so real.
Yep.
I struggled with that a lot, especially when I was balancing school plus work, because I would do school all day and then work till like I went to sleep, basically, which now I feel like so privileged to be done at 5 p.m. some nights and be like, well, we're just going to go home and have dinner. That's great. But yeah, like I would get so burnt out. Like the last thing I didn't want to talk about work. I didn't want to look at it. I needed like 3 days off.
Yep.
be tired, exhausted.
Well, and I think it definitely is applicable to the business world, but I think it's also applicable just in life too. I remember a few years ago I ran the Mini, and for those of you who aren't from Indiana, Mini Marathon is a half marathon through downtown Indianapolis around. It's another event in May.
Right. And now you're sponsored.
And now I'm sponsored, yes. But I ran the Mini, and then I did absolutely nothing to work out the rest of the month of May because it was just like I was zapped and I wasn't motivated anymore. Yeah. And I thought about it afterward. I'm like, is that really worth it? Right? Like, sure, it's great to run. Mm-hmm. I love being able to do that. It's fun to run the Mini. But is that like truly effective? No.
Right.
And so I think that like figuring out what you can do to mitigate that burnout, mm-hmm. knowing that it's going to come, especially running a business. You got to fake it till you make it for a while. Right. And I think the hardest part that I found in running a business is faking it till you make it while also building the structure to get yourself out mm-hmm. of that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I think like it's also just learning to turn things off in your head too. Like Emily and I, when we go on a trip, you know, you'd think you'd want to take your camera and take photos and videos, but sometimes it's like left the cameras at the office. Yeah. Because part of that time is like, yes, it used to be our hobby too, but now it's so ingrained in our work that part of it is just leaving that at home and trying not to think about, wow, look what a cool frame that would be, right? So I don't know. It's a hard thing when you love your work, but you know you need to remove yourself from it, mm-hmm. And you have to be super diligent at doing that.
So yeah, I think what I would like to do is talk through some of the ways that you help mitigate burnout, mm-hmm. right? So like let's give folks some practical applications. I know, one of the things that I do that's really hard for me is saying no to certain things that come up. Everybody makes fun of me. My calendar is a mess. It's color coded and it has things all over the place.
So you would think it's super organized.
Yes, no. but it's not. But it's because I have such a hard time saying no to things. Like I want to have coffee with the new person. I want mm-hmm. to be able to take on the additional project. I want to be able to, again, block out time for my mm-hmm. family. And I have found, this is not something I knew early on when I started business, but like by saying no to a lot of things, you can really show up and say yes to mm-hmm. the things that are important. And so it's funny, one of my New Year's resolutions in 2022, I usually hate New Year's resolutions. That could be a topic for another day. It's another hot take. But I said that was going to be the year of saying no. And I found so much freedom in the fact mm-hmm. that like I gave myself permission to say no to things that either weren't important in the long run, got in the way of things that were important, like my family or bottom line profit margins or something like that. But then it gave me the ability to like really show up and say like, yes, I am going to give more to organizations I'm a part of. So like practical applications for me. I usually only do things one or 2 days out of the week, outside of being home for dinner after 5 p.m. After 8 p.m. my phone goes on do not disturb, which is good for me because it gives me the.
And that's kind of recent, right?
Yes. That is a new one. I only take on one pro bono client at a time. Mm-hmm. There are lots of people that want to have your help. And for a while I was saying yes to everybody. Mm-hmm. And when I put that structure in place, that's another one that's more recent. When I say I can't do it. I can only take on one pro bono client at a time. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to either put you in the queue for next year, or if you want to work with us, I'm happy to show you what those rates are. No one has pushed back on that. Right. I think there mm-hmm. is like a mentality that you think that you have to show up for everybody. But if you do that, you're constantly going to undercut yourself in the long run.
Right.
So all of those have been super helpful for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think some of those I'm going to implement myself, like the one pro bono client that you give it all to. Like, love that, love that, and I love the idea of helping them for a year. Make it your year-long mission of, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to help out. How can we do that best for you? Let's take a real look at this. I think for me, a lot of it was just learning, when to turn work off, when to say no to things is huge. Because especially since we were young, we would just say yes to everything because it's like, okay, we need to be in that room, right? And I've learned that availability, just being available to everyone does not make success. Being available to the right people at the right time makes success in a lot of ways. Knowing who's called to answer when, and when to help out, when to show up is huge. And then knowing when to give yourself a break, right? So there are some people I really admire that if they're not going to an event, maybe it's not the most crucial thing for us to go to, right? And being mindful of that and taking a look at your month of calendar and saying, should I really add another Tuesday night thing to the calendar? No. Because I think, right, you hit a point where, yes, it's going to help you at some level, but it's also, people assume you're going to be at certain things, and you have to mitigate which ones are good for me to be at, which ones are not necessary.
Well, and like which ones, I think that falls into two buckets, right? Like which ones are ones that will lead to potential clients or will help you with clients that you currently have. And also, like, what's fun? Like, what do you want to spend your Tuesday night doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, if I can swap a Tuesday night group gathering for a Wednesday morning breakfast with somebody, one-on-one, that's probably has a way higher conversion rate for work. And also I'm going to enjoy myself more. I'm going to choose that. Like, if there's one person I'm going to that event to talk to, but they're willing to just meet up one-on-one, and then I don't just get the little 5-minute stop and chat that doesn't really get anybody anywhere. Like I'm going to choose that all day long.
I think it is super important. One of the other things that I have found that's been really helpful to me is hiring the right kind of people. I will say this, like before I started business, this was true in my own life. I was a committophobe. I dated a lot of people when I was in high school and college. Bronwyn was the longest person that I had ever dated before we got married. Before that, I only dated people, I don't know, 3 months.
3 months or less.
And so once I got to 3 months with Bronwyn, I was like, well, I guess we're getting married. This is the longest that I've ever dated somebody. So I think this is it. But I had a really hard time with hiring because it was putting myself out there in a commitment. No one, and this is the hardest part about owning a business, no one is ever going to care about your business as much as you do.
Right.
And I don't expect the people that work for me to have that mentality. I want them to show up and work hard and, have fun in the process. But I went through a few different models before I bit the bullet to hire someone. I had an army of interns. I did part-time work during COVID. That changed a lot of things. I had really good interns that ended up as employees. And then when I was getting ready to make my first full-time hire, I remember talking to Rocky Walls, who's one of the great important mentors in my life. And I asked him, like, okay, how did you go about making your first hire? And I walked through the homework that I had done on my end, and he was like, dude, just do it. Like, you're never going to have like the full assurance that it's going to work out. But he said, you work hard, you've done your homework, take the risk and do it. And so I learned a lot in that process. And it's gotten me to be able to work with some great people. But I think that's the biggest part. Like with the team that I have in place now, it's so helpful to me. I know that, I could not do the work that I do if I didn't have that structure in place. And I would constantly handicap myself if I didn't have people that were working for me and with me on these big projects. And so I know it's so tempting, at least for me, to think that I can do it all on my own, but like having that humility to
Right.
know that you cannot has been one of the biggest game changers for me.
Yeah. And I think understanding, when people ask for last minute things or a new job comes up, if you don't have time to do that job, you have to say no.
Yep.
And that's really hard.
It is really hard.
Like if you see just like money hanging out there and they just want to give it to you and you have to say no because you have other people you're accountable to that you have to get that work done too. That's super, super difficult.
That and it's funny. Like I realized that this is, I don't know, a year or two ago. I started my business because I wanted to be able to like call my own shots and spend time with my family and things like that. Yeah. And there are times when you have to do the emergency project, right? But what I found was like that type of work was actually getting in the way of me being able to spend time with my family and like call the shots that I wanted to. Yeah. And that's when I made myself stop doing that because like the whole reason that I took this job was to be able to have the freedom and the flexibility to do what I want when I want it to on my own terms. And I realized that I was putting myself back in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so easy to fall into that. And I think some other sort of practical tips are to have hobbies and other things you're passionate about. Even if it's like Emily and I have been itching for a project. So like our apartment is just all of our furniture fits just right. So it's not like we can rearrange, can't add anything. So that's why maybe we're making some office improvements. We're like, here's our new project, which has been super fun. So having that, it's like, it's its own little break for us. We love doing that sort of stuff. It's probably why we were going to go on a house tour. That makes no sense. Because we just signed a 14-month lease. So, but like those things have something to get your mind off it that you're also passionate about. Whether it's reading a book or yard projects,
running the many,
family activities, coaching a kids' little league team, whatever it is. I think that's super helpful because I am not a commitment phobe at all. Because I think giving myself commitments outside of work help naturally balance me out.
Oh, absolutely.
So if I say I'm going to do this, I am going to show up for it. And it's going to be a great mental break and it's going to be rewarding in its own way. And I think that's super, super helpful.
I just had an interview with someone who's joining our team in June. And in the interview, I said, like, it is an expectation that you are involved in something else outside of work. Right. So like for me, it's counsel. For other people on our team, they have different areas and groups that they're involved in. I think it makes you a better employee, a better husband, a better wife, a better friend, for you to have things that you're involved in outside of work. You have to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And part of that can just be like, we do things consistently with my larger family as a whole every week. Like you need to have some sort of perspective on where you're at, where other people are at. Like last night I saw, they're like my mom's friends, but one of them used to be my teacher and one of them was a girl I went to school with's mom. They were at Brewburger, so I stopped by and said hi to all of them. And it's just great to catch up with people from your hometown that are in a different stage of life and hear what things are about. And to me, that's something outside of work beyond just going home and sitting on the couch or doing something like that. So I don't think it even has to be a formal, here's what I do outside of work. It can be, no, I push myself to do something every week that isn't in my bubble of work, home.
Well, and even that, like, I know that I'm a 95-year-old trapped in a 35-year-old body, but like, that's why I believe that the work from home mentality is a lie. Yeah. To be super blunt. I think that you have to be around other people. You cannot just be at home all the time.
I think it leads to depression too.
Yes. Like you've got to be around other people, exposed to different ideas. And that's why I'm such a big believer in what we're doing here. Like making more space for people to have a physical work environment around other people, whether you want your own office, whether you just want a place to show up. I found that when I was starting my business, I did not have much accountability because I didn't have very many clients. And, but I knew that just working from home would not be the answer to the problem. When I had started working in Noble Coffee, and there were other small business owners that showed up around the same time every day. And so in a goofy way, like that became
tribe.
those are my coworkers, right? But when I didn't show up for a week because I was sick or I was, out with clients, I had people that said, hey, like, I noticed that you haven't been at Noble Coffee. Are you okay? And you need that, right? And so I know that it's goofy, but like one of my outlets is, again, talking about, the work that we're doing in this building. It's so important to me that we provide a space for other people to work well, to be known, to have fun while they're at work, whether they're like a solo entrepreneur or they've got a team. Like we have different spaces for everybody here. And I think that it's so important that people have the opportunity to do that. So don't work from home.
Yeah.
Work here with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't the hybrid model is fine. Right.
Yeah.
But I think that you can be so isolated if you just work from home and don't see anything outside of your bubble and a Zoom call and emails. I think it's kind of dehumanizing in one way because you don't put the human with who's doing the work. And you also don't get that feedback that you desire either when you're sitting down the hall from your boss or across the room from your boss. I just think that having community and a space is super important, and I think it's part of the accountability structure, right? Like one of my biggest accountability boosters is seeing, okay, if I saw X mentor or X successful person today that I really admire, do I have progress to tell them about? Like that's
good.
That's like my biggest thing. Because like sometimes I'm sick of a job, don't want to work on the project anymore. Yeah. But if I think, oh gosh, I need something to show so-and-so to show that, hey, we're still making progress here, I'm like, okay, better get it done. I'll work till midnight if I need to. And I think going into an office, surrounding yourself with people naturally gives you some of that. But I remind myself of that a lot. And it's part of why I try to get those coffees and lunches on the books is that's a good deadline for me to say, hey, check out this thing we've been working on. Now I have to have it done by then. Which is great. And then when you do go to those
artificial pressure,
like self-inflicted deadlines are the only way I get anything done.
Yes.
Because a lot of times clients aren't even in a rush on some of the work we do. They're like, oh, we just want to have it in the can. And like for May or July or September.
Yes.
So I'm just like, 2 weeks. That's great. Yep. So, but yeah, no, I think that artificial pressure and deadlines are crucial to keep yourself motivated, especially when you're a business owner, because you don't always have somebody giving you those. And if you're not doing it just for the client, if they're relaxed, then you need to do it for the people that are looking for your progress. And then you get extra feedback when you do go to group events like we were at last night. Somebody said, seems like you guys have been busy. And I'm like, good, I'm glad it does. We have been. So,
you're like, correct.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And that's only what you have seen. You haven't even looked upstairs to see all the, the work that we're doing here.
So yeah, like I definitely artificially motivate myself a lot. But I think it's super important. Well, I talk about it all the time. I don't ever want to lose momentum, especially when we're young, because I think people will quit buying in if you do. And
it only gets harder, right? When you have more balls that are thrown and up in the air that you have to juggle, it does get harder, right? Like my two kids are amazing. Yeah. They do not make it necessarily easier to be a business owner. Yeah. Right. Like there's more. I know that, thank God that I work in an office that's flexible because like Monday I had a sick kid with me. But I'm so grateful that I am able to call my own shots in life where she was able to come hang out with me for a little while. Yeah. While I did some work. That's the ultimate sign of freedom to me, that I'm able to do what I want when I want to on my own terms. Yeah, absolutely. There's just going to be more factors in all of life. So for Emily and I think it's just hugely important that we keep momentum and get a lot of buy-in. And then when things add in, hopefully we can have that team and the trust that, and we've had clients tell us before, I know that if you outsource, you're going to outsource to good people, which is great. But right now we don't really outsource, but it's great to know that they think that. Because eventually we will at some level, even if it's internally. It's not going to be just Emily and I. So I think, we want to build all that momentum and the trust so that when we do decide to have kids or buy a house or need more time working on the business than in the business, that we have all that trust built up.
which even right now, I feel like I could just take meetings all day, every day, and then give the work to somebody else.
Yep.
But then, like you said, will they do it right? Because a lot of times I have a super clear vision in my head, and I'm like, oh, I can just do it. It takes me a couple hours.
Yeah.
Then it might take somebody else 8.
Yep.
And it's like, it's taking too much time. But also,
but it is true. Like, that's one of the things that I've learned as a business owner is one of the biggest areas of impact that, like, yes, we do good work. I love showing up. I love being able to call man shots. One of the avenues that I've realized is, like, if I can give somebody a good quality job and a fun place to work, that's part of the impact too. And so I think it is almost incumbent on business owners to figure out how they can continue to put that structure and stability in place, not only for yourself, but for other people too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody needs inspired at some level. Everybody needs accountability at some level. And I think it goes both ways, right? If you have employees, right, they're going to inspire you and make you want to work hard because you're paying for their life, which is like super high pressure. And if you're an employee, you want your boss to inspire and motivate you and reward you because you seek validation from them and you look up to them, right? And I think that balance is super important. It's another commitment thing, like you said. It's another form of accountability and structure. And like, I always admire what Bill Gates did when he started hiring people at Microsoft. He didn't hire anybody until he always had 6 months payroll in the bank account.
Yep.
So if he had to lay off everybody, they'd all get paid for 6 months while they found their next job.
Yep.
And I think that is like such a great mentality to have.
You have to.
Have like, we're not going to leave people high and dry. It's not how this is going to work.
I do think that I have one more example that I want to share, but a quick story first. Last year, this came head to head for me. I got super sick in the fall. Like, it was brutal. I had a really bad spout with pneumonia. And I mean, like, I was out for, I don't know, 6 weeks. I felt horrible. I was just checking things off the list.
Yeah, this office was empty for a lot of the fall.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
All of us were
passing
like,
around
down at the count.
Yeah,
down for the count. But I think that it was like I was burnt out. I did not have any creativity. I was just trying to check things off the list, and I thought that I could do it all on my own.
Yeah.
And that I could rely on like a disparate team. I did not feed into anybody. I was not a great person to be around. And thank God I have the people in my life that called me out. Right. And so, I'm lucky we made a few hires, and it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Right. For me, that I want to control it all. But now 6 months later, I'm in so much of a healthier place physically, but also mentally. Like, I'd want to like take on the world and do new projects, and I feel creative again. And it's so tempting again to think that you can do it all on your own, but you can't.
No, you can't at all.
One of the, I know I alluded to this last time, but one of the ways that I've seen that come to fruition is going on vacation. And that's the last item that I had written down here for ways to prevent burnout. It's really hard for me to go on vacation.
Yeah.
And part of it's like, I love what I do. I love being able to walk to work and show up and call my own shots. And so I feel pretty lucky that I've got a pretty good gig in life.
Yeah.
But shutting off was so healthy for me and gave me so much clarity on like what we're doing, what we're not doing. But then like, what else do I want to do? How else can I like put some of those creative juices to work and start new businesses and do interesting things and take on the world? And so like, it's counterintuitive, but shutting off for a while, I think you have to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I had my hometown church's pastor. He used to be the youth minister for a long time, and they plan this 300 kid church camp every summer. It's awesome. I've
Sounds
Been
like
there.
sounds like a nightmare.
Been there, right? Oh, totally a nightmare. Nightmare for everybody planning it.
Yes,
And then like the security they've had to add, all the checks, like things you don't think about, like food allergies in the backyard camp, like all these things. But every year, I don't know if he still does this because I don't know how much of that he's involved in anymore. He would go away to a cabin for like a 3-day weekend alone, nobody else, just him. And he would plan all of camp in 3 days. He would plan all of his messages, make his action items for when he got back, everything. And I think that is so important. So we were just in Oklahoma and we were out at these ranches and like just rolling green hills. It was beautiful. And I was like, this is where like, if we were to do a work retreat with other people, we should come somewhere like this, be in the middle of nowhere and throw around ideas. Cause it's like, it was so quiet out there.
Yes.
And calm, and it just gives you a lot of clarity.
So it's funny, we didn't talk about this, but like I had a similar experience with the IU fellowship the meeting that we had last week. It was down at St. Meinrad, which is a Benedictine monk arch abbey down in southern Indiana. And I remember commenting on the last day, I was only there for, 36 hours. And when I went out that morning to journal, it was the first time for as long as I can remember that I heard nothing. Yeah. I heard no cars. I heard no people talking. I heard animals and like the rustling of the water next to me. And it made me realize, one, wow, like I am constantly inundated with noise, but also like, what noise am I making? Like how am I showing up in the world? And like, how can I do that better?
Right.
And really, if you like don't get out of your own way to realize that, it's only going to continue to lead to burnout.
Yeah, totally. Well, and that's another great point, right? Vacation might not be super accessible if you're a business owner, but like going 2 hours away and just getting a change of scenery or going to a state park and going on a hike.
It wasn't that long, right? You guys weren't in Oklahoma for that long either.
No.
Right? Like you don't have to go for a week. Like it's nice to go for a week, but like you don't have to do that.
You can go for an overnight, and you can go for 2 days. You can just finding a getaway or a quiet place where you can calm down, chill out, reflect, not be worried about, if you're at the office, not be worried about work. If you're at home, not be worried about the dishes in the sink, and just take a breath. I think that's so important, and it leads to such better results. Like I've been thinking about it a lot. Like my favorite part of our job is we get to document like the American experience. And now it's more states, it's more places. We've been all over Indiana for the past 4 years, but now it's Oklahoma. Things are so different there. Concerns are different. It was peak tornado season and the weather was being weird. They're like, might get a tornado tonight. We'll be fine tomorrow though. Like the mindset's different. Saw the Oklahoma City Memorial. So cool. I wasn't alive during that. So like learning about that and everything, went through the museum. Missouri is a whole different world as well. And then getting to sit down and say, well, what are the issues here? What are you facing here? It's like my favorite part of our job. And part of that is through our work, but part of that is also going on a road trip, getting away, just talking to people, things that aren't as easy to do anymore. And the people that are great at it are elderly people. We were at the gas station in Missouri on the way back. This old lady just walks up to me. Looks like you've been in red clay, because the car had dirt all over it. I was like, yep, we were in Oklahoma. She's like, oh, we just drove to Alabama for this. And it was one of those things that at first startled me, because I'm like, this is so weird.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yeah.
It's so weird now. But then we had a great chat, right? And I think more often than not, we miss out on those opportunities that you can learn so much from. And, if you go somewhere new, say, is there anywhere I need to check out? And that normally leads to another exciting new adventure. But yeah, I think a great way to prevent burnout is to explore and find quiet and find peace.
And I think doing that in different capacities throughout the year is really important. And I think this is one thing that I think we can leave as a final note. One practice that I do is like every day find a way to take 5 minutes and just decompress, right? So whether it's take a walk or, have a coffee or have your moment in the morning or at night, I think that's important. Every month I schedule a day where I'm not supposed to schedule anything. So it's a block on my calendar.
Yeah.
And that gives me the capacity to take a step back and look, from a broader view on like, is what I'm doing important and do I need to change anything? I made a change actually this morning for my next one that it's actually going to also be a social media fast day. Where like I'm not going to get on social.
Yeah.
I'm going to have somebody else change the password on my phone, so I'm not even tempted by it.
Yeah.
And then finding time once a year to like to that point is like get away, even if it's 24, 48, 72 hours. Get away purely from a business perspective to reorient yourself. Over the past year, have I been doing what has been helpful? Yes or no? How do I want to change things? You cannot do it when you're in your day-to-day just marking things off a list. And so I think those three things every day, every month, every year, like it's different for everybody. That's what works for me. Right. But I think finding ways to prevent burnout every single day is the key to make that happen.
Yeah. And I think in those times, like we talked about earlier, we need to, you need to acknowledge your successes and your shortcomings, and celebrate the victories too. Because it can be hard to do that when you're a growth and a future minded person. So I think forcing yourself to do that too is hugely important.
It is.
There we go. That's Burnout.
Okay.
See you next week.